Go ahead. Yes.
I just want to check and make sure that Legislator DeVecchio Hoffman and Legislator McCabe can hear us.
Yep, I can.
Perfect.
I would like to call this joint meeting of the Recreation and Education and Ways and Means Committees to order. The purpose of this joint meeting is to hold a public hearing on the 2024-2025 operating budget for Monroe Community College. We will then proceed with the agenda items that have been assigned to both the Recreation and Education Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. When the Recreation and Education Committee's items are finished, that committee will adjourn and we will complete the remainder of the Ways and Means Committee agenda.
Will the clerk please call the roll for the Recreation and Education Committee?
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Here. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy is present. Chairman Baines.
Here.
Chairman Baines is present. Ms. DeVecchio Hoffman. Ms. DeVecchio Hoffman? Gotcha. Ms. DeVecchio Hoffman is present. Ms. Hasman? Here. Ms. Hasman is present. Mr. Johns? Here. Mr. Johns is present. Mr. McCabe?
Here.
Mr. McCabe is present. And Mr. Sinclair? Here. Mr. Sinclair is present.
Will the clerk please read the roll for the Ways and Means Committee?
Ms. Barnhart? Here. Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baines?
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy? Here. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy is present. Mr. Brew? Here. Mr. Brew is present. Mr. Colby? Here. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Dondorfer? Here. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Keller? Here. Mr. Keller is present. Chairman Mafucci?
Here.
Chairman Mafucci is present. Ms. Smith? Here. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons? Here. Ms. Vasquez Simmons is present. Mr. Udelson? Here. Mr. Udelson is present.
Will Legislator Bartholomew McCoy please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
At this time, we will have a brief presentation by Patrick Meredith and Bob Kiley, Director and Deputy Director of Parks. Mr. Meredith and Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the invite. Good evening, all. The Parks Department has recently engaged with environmental design and research to study the trail systems and their uses in parks surrounding Irondequoit Bay. The parks in the area include Ellison, Irondequoit Bay Park West, Abe Lincoln, Tryon, and Lucian Morin. The most recent study conducted in this area was the Ellison Park Area Master Plan Updates and was concluded in 2009 and was also done by EDR. The first public engagement session for this is scheduled next week on the evening of Wednesday, August 6th at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Waterfront Lodge at Abe Lincoln Park. I'd now like to turn over to Bob Kiley, who can give a few more details on this session.
Thank you. Thus far, the Parks Department has given a brief presentation to the Parks Advisory Committee, in addition to the joint session here this evening. As the director said, the public input session for the Irondequoit Bay Area Parks Trail Survey is scheduled for next Tuesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. It'll be an open house session. Individuals can come in, share their ideas, opinions on any improvements, needs, wants, desires, etc., with regard to trails within those 5 select parks, anytime between 6 and 8 p.m. A little bit further into what EDR, our consultant, is preparing for. In addition to that open house, we will launch a community survey, an interactive mapper. The community survey will be a short 5 to 10 minute survey questionnaire. The community mapper will be an interactive mapper that individuals can utilize over the internet to be able to identify with a pin in the 5 county parks as discussed, highlighting different needs, wants, desires, pinch points, or conflict points within each park. EDR will have 2 staff members at 8 different trailhead locations on a variety of weekday and weekends to encourage survey participation. The survey really being the driving force here to gather and garner information from the public. QR codes, lawn signs, and other passive informational displays will be placed within the 5 parks. Again, Abraham Lincoln, Tryon, Lucian Morin, Irondequoit Bay Park West, and then Ellison Park. We have already shared postcards with towns in which these parks are located or are adjacent to, those towns being Irondequoit, Penfield, Brighton, Webster, and the town of Pittsford. So once all of that information is collected, a second meeting will be held for the general public to allow individuals to come in, understand some of the preliminary findings and recommendations based off of those survey results. It's anticipated at this time that that meeting will occur sometime this fall, and then a final recommendation, a report will likely come Q1, Q2 of 2025. Quickly to summarize kind of how the Parks Department got here, we have heard from a variety of different user groups through the last several years regarding the Ellison Park system of parks, all of the parks that surround Irondequoit Bay, and increased requests for use. These could be from construction of bridges over Irondequoit Creek to increased trail access and usage. And it's really in that trail access and usage that this study focuses. Ultimately, we will likely hear from a bunch of these stakeholder groups, be it from birders to hikers, mountain bikers, preservationists, and really this is critical for our understanding and ultimately the consultant's understanding of what the needs and wants and desires are of the community as a whole. And so ultimately, this is a great forum in which we can present to the legislative body some of our work here and ultimately get the word out that once that survey is launched, that we will entertain and gather all of this information, synthesize it, and then put forth, then have our design consultant put forth a recommendation. At this time, we can take any questions. Likely within the next 4 to 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, most likely.
Well, thank you, Bob and Pat, and to the Parks Department. And thank you, Legislator DeFlorio, for suggesting that you come in and keep us apprised of the exciting developments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Deanna Bertnana, who's president of Monroe Community College, and she is going to present to us the budget that we will be hearing on and voting on shortly. Bringing a few of her colleagues with her. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Mafucci, and also Chair Baines. I'm so glad to be here. And to everyone in the Recreation and Education Committee and Ways and Means Committee, I do want to introduce my colleagues that are with me here today, CFO Greg Hinton, and also our Associate Vice President, Daryl Jacob Moore, that also works in our finance area. My name is Dr. Deanna Bertnana, and it is my privilege to serve as the 6th president of our Monroe Community College, one of our country's most esteemed and pioneering institutions. Always look forward this year to be able to tout the wonderful things that are happening at this amazing institution for our community. And my purpose today is to highlight but a sampling of the impactful work MCC has accomplished and to partner with you as we plan for a future that unlocks opportunity for Monroe County citizens and affords them the skills necessary to secure well-paying jobs. MCC is thankful to the partnership with Monroe County and the opportunity to present our proposed 2024-2025 operating budget for your review and your consideration. It has been approved by the MCC's Board of Trustees. Throughout history, the strength of our institution's financial position can be directly tied to the financial investments of Monroe County government leaders. This resource of operating funding is vital as we commit all the more to our educational access, academic excellence, institutional effectiveness, equity, and institutional practices for MCC students' success. Thanks to your year-over-year increased investment over the past 3 years, Monroe Community College ranks among the top 4 certificate and degree producers in Monroe County and the state of New York. The impact of your investment is visible and measurable across every level of our institution. As we conclude the 2023-2024 academic year, we have educated 23,986 students. Of them are 20,953 credit students and 3,033 non-credit or workforce students, an increase of 4.4% over the prior year, with over 79% of them being Monroe County residents. We also graduated over 1,400 well-prepared students who demonstrated resilience in earning their associate degrees and certificates. MCC is a gateway of opportunity for students who come from all walks of life. Between 2023-24, we served over 224 military veterans, active duty persons and officers, and over 100 international students from 36 countries. Our student population continues to reflect the evolving composition of our community. Currently, the demographic makeup of our student body reflects 50.5% self-identifying as white, 22.1% African American, 13.8% Hispanic, 6% Asian, and 7.3% self-identifying as other. We are proud to serve them all. We catalyze bright futures for our community and its people. Our graduates are exceptionally prepared for careers locally or to continue their education at one of our many four-year college and university partners, both in-state and nationwide. In fact, of the MCC students who choose to continue their studies, approximately 81% transfer to a State University of New York, SUNY, or City University of New York, CUNY institution. Of the career and certificate program graduates, 90% stay in the region in full-time jobs. We agree with others that MCC's education and training is top-notch and affordable. Nearly 2/3, 61% of our students graduate debt-free. MCC's most valuable assets are its people, administrators, faculty, staff, who commit daily to upholding the quality and vibrancy of the education and training we deliver through their excellence. This year alone, MCC faculty and staff have received 7 SUNY Chancellor Awards, recognizing excellence in teaching, faculty service, professional service, librarianship, classified service, and innovation. For the 2024-25 academic year starting next month, we anticipated enrollment of 7,400 full-time equivalents, or FTE students, in state aidable credits, an increase of 6.7% over the prior year. However, updated projections now suggest we may exceed our FTE projections. Overall, the unique student headcount is currently up 466 students, or 8.2% compared to last year. With this projection, we are on track to exceed last year's enrollment. We have also demonstrated increased success at attracting new students while helping currently enrolled students stay and complete their education. Over the past 6 years, MCC has consistently demonstrated improved rates of student retention, up from 57% in 2018 to 61% in 2022. And in 2022-23, we partnered with 46 high schools and BOCES across the Finger Lakes region to serve 4,374 high school students in dual enrollment programs, which we call College Now. MCC is dedicated to serving the diverse needs of our community as your community's college. We agree with the Harvard Project on Workforce that our nation's community colleges are America's hidden economic engines. Thus, MCC has prioritized delivering efficient, high-quality training for our local economy to grow and thrive. One example is our dedication to our high-needs programs with strong job placement rates. Nearly 6% of the fall 2023 enrollment, which is approximately 492 students, are in MCC's credit healthcare programs. 80% of these graduates remain in Monroe County to live and work. MCC's healthcare programs include nursing, an associate degree of applied science with 237 students, and for the most recent licensure exam for those amazing students, MCC had a 100% pass rate compared to 90% on the state level and 93% nationwide. In the dental hygiene area, where we serve 64 associate applied science students, this year, we had a 100% pass rate for dental hygiene and a 100% pass rate for dental assisting students on their licensure exams. Radiologic technology, 47 students in the associate applied science. This year's Rad Tech had 100% pass rate, with 21 of the 22 students having taken their exam at this juncture. Other certificate and degree programs, credit certificate degree programs, represent about 86 students. Among the many programs we are well known for, an exceptional one is Optical Systems Technology Program. We are the only optical systems technology program in the nation. Some extraordinary facts about our optics program include a 2,489% growth rate from 5 students in fall of 2015 to 129 students in 2023, of which 23% are female, 25% self-identify as students of color, 27% of those students who joined the program in fall of 2023 took an optics class in one of our 20 dual enrolled area high schools. 70 students graduated from the optics program this past May, the largest in the program's history. Earlier this year, the optics program received $259,000 in federal funding for a new semiconductor training initiative, thanks to Senator Schumer's leadership and with the support of Representative Joe Morelli and Senator Gillibrand. This highlights how MCC is unlocking opportunities for our citizens to increase their access to good jobs in high-demand fields where they can earn high wages. Moreover, we boast a long-standing tradition of fostering positive and productive partnerships with local employers, educational institutions, and trades unions as we create training opportunities to equip our students for their success. A notable example is our collaboration with Genesee and Finger Lakes Community Colleges to operate the Finger Lakes Workforce Development, or the Forward Center, on the 5th and 6th floors of our downtown campus. The regional hub offers short-term, between 4 days and 15 weeks, of accelerated robotics, mechatronics, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, skilled trades, and automation training, just to name a few. Our innovation and ability to create a positive partnership enabled MCC to be named the Workforce Component Project Lead in the recently awarded New York Smart Eye Corridor. The workforce component, STEP Up, which stands for Semiconductor Talent and Employer Partnership in upstate New York, will close critical gaps in upskilling, hiring, and retention of middle-skilled semiconductor positions. It will also ensure federal investments create economic opportunities and career pathways in tech and manufacturing for historically excluded communities. We're about assisting those most in need. Economic opportunity should be for all citizens of Monroe County, and we believe it begins with high-quality and accessible post-secondary education. In a 2022 report from the U.S. Census Bureau, it indicated that 40.1% of all children ages 5 through 17 attending school in the city of Rochester live below the poverty line. This is the second highest poverty rate of any school district in our state. And over 13% of MCC students are from this district. Monroe County has a poverty rate of 18.3%, 2.8 percentage points higher than the national average at 15.5%, and ranks 20th out of the 64 counties in the state in terms of poverty. MCC's mission is to help reverse that trend, and does help to focus our strategic enrollment management efforts and to prioritize student recruitment from Rochester City Schools. Moreover, our remarkable donors play an important role in our students' education via the MCC Foundation. Thanks to their generosity to the MCC Foundation, we have broken our record by awarding $1.6 million in scholarships in 2023 to 857 students, helping more students start, stay enrolled, and achieve their goals of securing a better life for themselves and their loved ones. MCC is also a model for the nation in helping student parents, who comprise approximately 20% of our student body. In the fall of 2023, MCC supported over 1,270 student parents, including single mother students. In 2019, MCC and 3 other colleges nationwide received a Single Moms Success Design Challenge grant of $50,000. That goal at that time with the grant and still beyond was to provide critical support and community connections to single mother learners and increase their completion rates. When we embarked on this endeavor, the goal was to increase the graduation rate of single mom students from 10% to 13% by 2024. I am proud to announce that MCC exceeded our goal by 5.8%, moving the needle on the 6-year graduation rate for single moms from 10% to 19%, nearly doubling it. MCC also caters to the needs of student parents who prefer online college courses and remote services to manage their academics, their families, or work responsibilities more effectively. We also know that student parents with children under the age of 6 who used our on-campus child care center are 18% more likely to continue their education and 3 times more likely to graduate than those who do not use our Richard M. Guan Child Care Center, which also serves children of the public in the city of Rochester. Last year, the Washington Post editorial page highlighted our program's success for the nation, putting again Monroe County on the map. We continue to explore additional ways to apply what we have learned from our student parents to strengthen educational opportunities for all of our students. MCC makes education accessible to all Monroe County citizens, but there are challenges. While MCC has achieved tremendous success for our students and communities over our 61-year history, this success has not occurred without at times, some challenges. We are incredibly grateful to the Monroe County Legislature and to County Executive Bell's administration for the financial support that you have provided. We take your investment with great appreciation and with an intense sense of stewardship, knowing that community colleges are essential to advancing our counties, our countries, and our region's workforce and economic development goals, it is no surprise that the vision of our elected officials prioritizes deeper investments in healthcare and emerging technologies to sustain our domestic and global positions. Yet, like other educational institutions, MCC continues to experience increases in the cost of energy to operate our facilities, as well as labor and fringe benefits to pay our people a living wage. Diverse students also come with needs that are diverse for instructional support and services. Meeting these demands while simultaneously balancing our budget is incredibly challenging without reliable and sustained aid from our local and state governmental partners. We must work with governmental officials as we continue to increase our fiscal resources. For the past 4 years, MCC received flat operating aid allocations, $29.9 million from New York State. Flat. This year, the state allocated an additional $350,000 in funding to our nursing programs, for which we are tremendously grateful. This funding was well received, as flat funding only shrinks our purchasing power because of concurrent annual increases in operational expenses, leaving us with fewer resources each year to develop emerging academic programs and sustain existing ones. This issue affects community colleges across our region and our state. In conclusion, MCC is committed to catalyzing bright futures for our community and its people. It remains my honor to lead such an extraordinary public institution of higher education, one that is with an incredible legacy as a jewel in this community. Together as one, MCC is living out our mission and vision of championing equity and opportunity, innovation, and excellence while transforming students' lives and communities. So on behalf of us all at MCC, our employees and the Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for your tried and true partnership and ask for your consideration of a unanimous approval of our fiscal year 2025 county budget. Thank you.
Thank you. We couldn't be more proud to have MCC as our flagship post-secondary institution, and we're very proud to have you as its leader.
Thank you.
And we love data, so I was listening very carefully to all that data, and we appreciate the specificity of it. Let's take some questions from members of our committees, those who have them. As a school teacher for many years, I take your silence as assent.
And I thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of Monroe Community College's 2024-2025 operating budget.
Affidavits of publication and posting of the notice of the hearing in the Daily Record and Rochester Business Journal have been received and are on file in the clerk's office.
Is there anyone signed up to speak in regards to the public hearing on the MCC budget?
There is no one registered for the public hearing.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in regards to the public hearing on the MCC budget? There being none, I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you, Legislator Baines. Are there any speakers signed up to address either committee this evening?
There is not.
Is there anyone here who would like to address either committee at this time? There being none, I declare the public forum closed.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Members of the Recreation and Education Committee, you have the minutes from the June 24, 2024 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day.
Members of the Ways and Means Committee, you have the minutes from the June 24, 2024 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day.
The next item on the agenda is new business. Legislators, please note the asterisk and italicized print on your agendas for items requiring action by both committees. Mr. Clerk, please read the item to be considered by both committees.
Referral 24-0220, approval of Monroe Community College's 2024-2025 operating budget.
Moved by Majority Leader Udelson, seconded by Legislator Bartholomew. Seconded by Legislator
This
Smith.
was, I just need a mover and a seconder for Rec and Ed, and then a move and second from Ways
Okay,
and
we'll
Means.
call that Rec and Ed. No, you're not on Rec and Ed. Okay. All right, who's first?
Rec and Ed goes first.
Recreation
Who's on
education.
first? All right, here we go. So we have a motion, Rec and Ed portion by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy, Legislator Hasman, and I believe Legislator Johns. Second, that also.
And I had Legislator Sinclair as well. Is that what I heard? And Legislator McCabe as well? Got it.
Ways and Means, we need a mover.
Move it.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Smith.
And then Legislator Vasquez Simmons. Anybody else? Okay.
At this time, are there any questions from the members of the Ways and Committee only? If there is no further questions, we will move to a vote. Members of the Ways and Means Committee, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
And now, at this time, are there any questions from members of the Recreation and Education Committee? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Are there any other matters to come before the Recreation and Education Committee? There are none. There being no other matters, the July 30, 2024 meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting will be held on Monday, August 27th, 2024 at 6 p.m. and we can now restore our hearing in its proper place.
Thank you, Legislator Baines. Now, we will proceed with the rest of the Ways and Means Committee meeting. At this,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be recognized for this portion of the meeting. They don't want to confuse the rest.
at this time, we will have a presentation by Mr. Randy Shepard, independent auditor from Bondeo and Company, LLP. Mr. Shepard. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. So yes, Randy Shepard, Bonadillo. As I start off, I just want to thank Bob Franklin, Jennifer Cesario, and all their staff that we deal with and throughout the county on this audit process. I say this every year. We deal with many people within the county through our process and talking to, whether it's the single audit, which will be completed in the next month or so, or the regular financial statement audit. And so it always goes very well. Our role, as you know, from the audit perspective, is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. We provided those back in May. May 21st is when that was issued. Those are management's financials, their numbers, but we make sure we provide opinion, which was a clean or unmodified opinion. So today what we're going to go through is what's called a required communications letter. As the name implies, there's certain things we are required to communicate to those charged with governance, which is this group, about the audit process. The first of which relates to accounting practices, accounting policies, and the fact that all of those policies are described in Note 1 to those financial statements. There was one new accounting pronouncement instituted this year related to subscription-based IT arrangements. The impact of that was about $1 million, and basically just records both an asset and a liability related to the use of those subscription-based type arrangements. Other than that, there was no transactions entered into by the county that didn't have authoritative guidance or that were not recorded in the proper period. There are estimates within financial statements. Every statement has a certain element of them. There were 2 or 3 significant ones that we call out, one of which is the other post-employment benefit obligation. So that's the obligation that you've committed to employees after they retire to pay health care for them and potentially their significant others. And so we look at that estimate, make sure that it follows all the guidelines. The second estimate relates to uncollectible accounts based on what may be uncollectible, looking at bankruptcies, tax surceries, payment history, et cetera, making sure that that's reasonable. And then lastly is the estimate related to the net pension obligation. So that actually you don't have much control over. The state and their actuaries set those assumptions. However, we do look at those, make sure that it's appropriate under the circumstances, and we look at all those estimates and assumptions. Sensitive disclosures, there are 2 of them, and the only reason they're called sensitive is because they're actuarially based. The OPEB, the post-employment benefits obligation, as well as the pension with the state is based on actuarial assumptions. So you change those 1% either way, and they can have a dramatic impact, which is why we refer to them as sensitive. And those disclosures are very clearly laid out within the financial statements. We did not have any difficulties encountered in performing the audit. As I said, we worked for this group here, so to the extent that we had a challenge, this is where we'd let you know. But the audit went very well, continues to go well. We did have a few adjustments as part of our audit process, material enough to record, but in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the amount of transactions that flows through the county on an annual basis, they were relatively small. One of them related to opioid settlements. There were some additional collections related to that, recording your investments at market value instead of the cost value, and then a few other small adjustments. We did not have any disagreements with management with respect to any of the audit process. Again, if we had those, we would bring those forth to your attention. And as I stated, we did issue these statements back in May 21st, and we're not aware that there was any opinion shopping or looking for second opinions with respect to any matters that we addressed. And throughout the year, management may, and we actually encourage it, reach out to us with questions. Those questions are not a condition of our retention. That's just part of the normal course of operations. And then really all the rest of the components of the statement are included as they should be. So with that, I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
We will now continue with the rest of the agenda for the Ways and Means Committee members. The next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk, please read the next item.
Referral 24-0233, amend the 2024 salary schedule for flat and hourly employees.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy and Legislator Dondorfer and Legislator Brew and Legislator Mercedes Vasquez Simmons. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Oh, any discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bain. Legislator Bain, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The cover letter for this referral discusses how it's going to make the pay more equitable to the makers of the motion. How will this pay schedule make salaries more equitable?
I can.
Sorry, my apologies. Making them equitable, this conversation started about a year ago, along with Saul Monero from the President's Office. And it's just making the pay ranges in between the majority and minority offices equal to each other, which is actually a rare thing across the state if you look at some of the other counties. So just making it more equitable for both staffs.
Through you,
Chairman, I'm looking at the schedule, and we have, for instance, for the clerk of the legislature position, the chief of staff positions, we have a gap of over $52,500 between the base pay and the max pay. And the max pay is over 100% more than the base pay. So how do these gaps work? Don't they create an opportunity for a person with a position in one office to be making $47,000 a year and one in the other to be making $97,000? Wouldn't that create a possible equity issue? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the maker of the motion.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I think in any corporate structure, you're not going to be able to have equity between different corporations. But I think the goal here is to allow a chief of staff who maybe have been here for 10 years or 5 years, I think certainly deserves to make a bit more than the chief of staff who came here last year. And it's not about the people in the positions now. It's not about the people here. It's about building for the future. And, you know, we want to be able to recruit college students. We want to be able to recruit the future. And to start someone off at the pay scales now the same as someone who's been here for 10 years is not equitable in itself. So I think it's just more of a building the grounds for leeway. Personally speaking, I've been here a few years, and you know, I certainly haven't seen any massive salary increases, but it helps to know that there's room to grow and helps with retention for not only myself, but the hardworking staff of both offices of the majority and minority, and president's office.
Any other discussion?
through you.
Legislator Romano.
So I'd just like to make a few comments in regards to the questions and also thank the other side of the aisle for helping to implement and discuss really this piece of legislation. So as was mentioned, it is about pay equity and pay parity. Right now, we can continue to talk about the chief of staff position, but right now the chief of staff in one office doesn't have the opportunity to make as much as the chief of staff as in the other, because the current salary scales are in fact inequitable for the same kind of work. Furthermore, the range, one of the conversations that we've had and continue to have in regards to the range is if in any instance there needs to be someone starting at the bottom of the range, that is really a conversation about the future for me. If the minority at any point in time has a smaller salary, for example, we have to be ensure that we'll be able to allow that particular office the opportunity to have staff within a range that they would be able to, in fact, staff up with based on how much money comes in per each legislator. So really, for me, it has to do with the fact that we want to clean up that page within the budget and the way in which we function as an organization. It was really important to me that both of offices have the opportunity to provide their staff with the same amount of pay. That is not an option right now. And this is actually something that I have thought about for a really long time. We were in the minority, and it was a conversation that didn't go too far then. But it is important for a bunch of various reasons that have been mentioned so far. It does not have an impact on the budget, but it does have an impact on the individual lives of our staff who are and continue to be underpaid staff within the government structure in New York State. So I implore all of my colleagues to really recognize the intent behind the piece of legislation, and my hope is that in the future we can continue to think of ways to ensure equal pay within these chambers.
Legislator Udelson.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would just say that I, first of all, really appreciate the efforts of everybody, staff that has worked. Support the concept of wide range from starting positions top of the level. On the other hand, I think the fact are to be placed at the same level. Actual pay equity.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
I would like to move that we consider the rest of the agenda as a whole, with the exception of the following items: number 24, 242, 255, 258.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Brew and Legislator Smith. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
We should be on referral 24-0242, acceptance of additional funding from the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, and amend Resolution 473 of 2023, authorizing contracts with not-for-profit agencies for Rochester Monroe County Youth Bureau programs in 2024.
Moved by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy and Legislator Udelson and Legislator Vasquez Simmons. You're clearing your interest? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 24-0255, appropriate fund balance and authorize interfund transfers.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 24-0258, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the enhancement and expansion of the Juvenile Enhanced Diversion Stabilization Program, and authorize the creation of 2 positions within the Department of Public Safety, Office of Probation and Community Corrections.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy and Legislator Vasquez Simmons. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baines.
Due to the administration, I'd love to take this opportunity to hear how the program's been working and how many clients are being served. In the referral, it indicated that the new personnel is required in part because of the intensive nature of the supervision. So I'm interested in a number of clients who are being served and whether or not this will give us capacity for more.
Christine Durante from the Office of Probation. Through the chair, the program right now, I don't have the exact numbers of clients that it has served. However, since the initial launch in May of 2023, I believe we were up around 500 youth that have come through the program. Right now, while youth are on the stabilization period through JEDS, the reoffense rate is at 1%. That means that only 1% of the youth have been rearrested during that stabilization period. The expansion of the JEDS program will allow us to expand that stabilization period from 2 to 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And we are hopeful that we can see those reoffense rates stay at that low number.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, for this body, would you please, as best you can, describe what an intervention looks like over the span of the 2 or 3 weeks, or now 4 weeks, in terms of the number of contacts with the juvenile and the type of requirements and engagements with the juvenile to try to stop the behaviors that are in question?
Through the chair, once a juvenile is arrested, immediately probation has contact with the family, often within hours while the juvenile is still with the police finishing paperwork. The probation officers are calling the family to gather information. And then through the stabilization period, we attempt daily contact and are usually quite successful with daily contact with the youth and/or family, many of those being in person. We also have collateral contacts daily with youth school or any service providers. If the youth is in need of any type of evaluation, whether it be mental health or substance abuse, we are able to link them with services immediately, and we are able to interrupt their pattern of violence quickly and efficiently during that stabilization period.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, do you have in your toolkit revocation of status as a something to incentivize the offender? Can you basically bring them back to court during the time of the stabilization if their behavior warrants?
Through the chair, this is a diversion program, so our ultimate efforts are to divert the youth from the system. If, however, the youth is not being compliant with the program, then their case will be referred to the juvenile prosecutor's office for petition recommendation. And that petition recommendation means bringing them back in front of a judge.
Thank you, and I'd like to explain my vote, Mr. Chairman. As some of you know, I probably brought it up more than I should. I served as a judge for 10 years, elected 42 years ago. I was very young, and I didn't understand the effects of incarceration on young people. And I also didn't understand deeply how important it is that we intervene in the lives of young people at the point of their first criminal engagement. So as we, as a country, are all agonizing over the best way to do law enforcement, the best way to do criminal justice, I just think this program is exactly the type of thing we need. And I wanted to ask those questions so that people would understand what intervention looks like. And I appreciate the work. I know the work is very, very difficult, and I appreciate all the partners who support our probation department in doing the work. And I'll, of course, be supporting this enthusiastically. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 24-0260, authorize appropriation transfers, intermunicipal agreements, and grant contracts pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Bartholomew McCoy, seconded by Legislator Brew. Anyone else? Is there any discussion? Legislator Brew.
Yes, Charity Administration, for the Senior Recreation Municipality Funding.
Legislator Brew, can you just make sure you use the microphone?
My apologies. To the Chair to the Administration, for the Senior Recreation Municipality Funding, how will this funding be divided by town as stated, and can we be provided a draft copy of this breakdown?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the plan is to distribute this money by population, and yes, we can get you a sheet that would have a breakdown of those dollars.
Thank you. Next question I have, and bear with me, I have a few questions here. What if one town has more needs than another town? Can those funds be shifted from one town to another?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, once we have the IMAs in place, as you know, we have to have this committed by the end of this year, and then there will be 2 years to spend the dollars, 25, and then by the end of 26, they have to be spent. If the situation, legislator, that you described comes to pass, there will be opportunities along the way to monitor the spending on the different municipalities, and there will be ways to make adjustments to those IMAs as we go along and as we monitor that spending.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up question, if I may. So the towns will be provided a number based upon population that will be a monetary number, as we said, based upon populations. If the towns, now, is the intent for that number to be the maximum allowed money that would be provided to the towns by the county? And I say that, let's say, for example, a town really does not have any projects going on. They would not require any money. And I guess my question is, the town would not be forced to take distribution from the county if they didn't have any projects on the books, correct? To the chair. Thank you. Another question, when can the towns expect to
Through the chair,
receive?
please.
Through the chair, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Through the chair, when can towns expect to receive this funding if approved by the legislature?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we would need, our plan is to have these IMAs in place by the end of the year, and then the spending would happen at the beginning of 2025.
Thank you. And one more follow-up question, if I may, through the chair of the administration. So with the IMAs between the county and the town, maybe a simplified question, are all the IMAs unique in their content based upon the contract that is being entered into or the agreement? The reason I ask this through the chair of the administration is that there are many IMAs that the towns are presently have executed with the county. Would those IMAs be able to be used in this case with a prior executed IMA? Was I clear in my question?
Through the chair, we would execute new IMAs for purposes of this municipal senior and youth congregate program funding, just so they would be ARPA compliant. They would be similar to the public safety IMAs that some of the towns did previously, but we would execute new IMAs for this purpose.
Thank you.
Legislator Smith.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration. When it comes to this referral, can you please explain how the spending will be monitored for these programs?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the spending for this would be monitored through our ARPA team that has been working on this, and then we also have an expanded contract with the auditing firm that we've been using, EFPR.
Thank you.
Legislator Dondorfer.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, will we be receiving monthly reports from the professional auditors that you speak of?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, part of this referral will have additional dollars, and the auditors will be making site visits, and we will make their reports and any documentation that they provide to us, we will provide to the legislature monthly.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, do you have like a rough guesstimate on what's going to be contained in these reports?
Mr. Chairman, the sum and substance of our auditing reports for these ARPA contractors are essentially there's summarization of their site visits in which they discuss the entity's financial operations, their internal controls, and their financial reporting for both program income and expenditures, and specific contractual compliance with ARPA regulations.
Thank you, and through the chair to the administration, for the nonprofits, each contract is in excess of $20,000. Is that required to come before this body for separate approval?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, it would.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator Colby.
Through the chair, I'll kind of go big picture here. This authorization of the funds to these non-for-profits that we have, will that use up the ARPA money that's left? Or is there still some going to be out for other programs?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Once this referral is passed, there is approximately $4.3 million that has not yet been allocated. And then it would be further discussions among the administration and the legislature to figure out how those dollars would be allocated.
Thank you. And we received the ARPA money all up front. We have that now in a bank account, essentially. Is that correct through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, it is.
I've heard rumors or heard information two different ways, I guess clarification. The interest we've been earning on those funds that we haven't expended already, where is that interest being reported to? And are there restrictions on that interest, or is that going into the general coffers? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it goes those interest earnings go into the general fund.
And just for I can see it, when I look at the budget next year, that isn't recorded as a separate interest item. I assume that's all rolled into interest income as like all the other interest income from other accounts. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Legislator Barnhart.
Thank you. Because Vice President Simmons and I were not invited to legislative briefings about this proposal, we have a number of questions. In the overview provided to the legislature for the CCSI tenant mediation proposal, the administration says 300 tenants are expected to be served, but the CCSI budget says only 60 will be served over the 2-year contract. Can you explain this discrepancy?
My apologies, it's really hard to hear in the back. Can you please repeat the question?
Any questions I repeat, I do not want taken away from my time. In the overview presented to the legislature, the administration says 300 tenants are going to be served under the CCSI tenant mediation program. But the budget that CCSI presented to the legislature says that only 60 tenants will be served over the 2 years, 30 per year. Can you explain this discrepancy?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe what the legislator is referring to was the RFP response from the vendor. Typically, what happens is we get a response to an RFP, and then our purchasing department would have the ability to go back and renegotiate a scope for them for an RFP, and that's what happened in this particular case.
Through the chair to the administration, so instead of 60 mediations that they propose to do for $7,500 each, you're going to ask them to do 150 per year in the contract.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, in the contract, it's going to be up to 250.
Legislator Barnhart, since you brought it up, I just want people to understand, should anybody be watching or people here in the audience, that there is a rule that basically says a legislator may speak as often on a question as he or she is recognized by the chair. However, no legislator shall speak for more than 5 minutes in total, except by permission of the presiding officer. So, since I don't have a lot of experience with this item, essentially what I plan to do is allow people to ask their questions, and should discussion take place, kind of be tactical in how much time we're going to allow people to talk on a particular issue. So just wanted to clarify that since you did bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Mafucci. I'm just doing some quick math here over how much this is going to cost per. So it will cost, through the chair to the administration, it's going to cost more than $2,000 per mediation. Do you think that's a reasonable cost? How many hours does a mediation take?
Through the chair, our hopes are that we're going to be able to make those numbers. As everyone knows, this is a brand-new program that we're bringing to bear to assist with a lot of the issues that we're seeing between landlords and tenants. At times, those relationships are so estranged that we need a third party to come in and assist with that. The mediation program also will assist with ensuring that in a more preventive way that we can get ahead of some of the issues. It's going to be really hard to tell because we don't have the program up and running right now. None of this is going to be cookie cutter. Each tenant and landlord, I'm sure, will have their own unique and specific needs related to mediation, with maybe upwards past 2 hours, depending on what that issue is and what we're looking to do to try to rectify. So as we utilize the system that we've built, SimplyGov, through the DHS department, we will start to track that data. We'll be able to collect the information in an intentional way that we can map out to ensure that we're utilizing the dollars in the way that we've intended, being able to collect the demographic data, to understand the qualitative data from the perspective of the landlords and the tenants, to ensure that we're able to meet the need here, and to ensure that we're able to keep as many tenants as possible in their current homes, as we know that housing is such an issue in our community right now.
The chair to the administration, there are a lot of tenant mediation programs going on across the country, and the Urban Institute evaluated them, and they evaluated navigation programs and said that rental assistance is key to making these programs work. And in fact, the Rochester Area Community Foundation rental market study and the Empire Justice's study on shelter rent allowances both recommended giving low-income tenants rental subsidies in order to increase stability and for tenants and landlords. Yet, this budget of $4.25 million for affordable housing initiatives has only $192 per household in direct aid through the FLIPS program for the approximately 1,000 people it is supposed to serve. That comes out to $192 per person. Does that seem adequate to you to cover the needs of the people going through these programs?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't really follow the question here. I guess part of what we would like to say, and this is something we said repeatedly, and I think if you talk to anybody who works in the field of housing and serving, working in the housing field, the whole idea of all you have to do is give people more money and things will be better isn't really the reality that the people who are the boots on the ground doing the work would agree with. The situation that we have right now is there is not enough quality housing stock in our community that is affordable for people, but there is a lack of quality housing. So there is a very significant school of thought that Commissioner Wright and her team at DHS has worked on, and they've also been dealing with again, the boots on the ground. And there is a overwhelming consensus that this problem really has to be tackled from the supply and demand aspect of it. There simply is not enough supply of houses to meet the demand, housing to meet the demand that's out there.
The chair, to the administration, I didn't say that rental assistance was all you had to do, but it's certainly clear in this that $192 per household of people experiencing these kinds of problems is not going to be enough. On to the landlord incentive program. The goal of the program is to expand the number of units for people who are homeless and have vouchers, right?
Through the chair.
Through the chair.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Through the chair to the administration, and yet most HUD programs, including one that was run by the Rochester Housing Authority, only gave bonuses to landlords who were new to voucher programs and smaller bonuses to those who would continue. Will that be part of the program for both CCSI and IBERO? That was not in their RFP responses. Again, will only new landlords to the program for vouchers be given this $1,000 bonus?
Through the chair, no, it will not be just new landlords. I just want to take a time to just kind of reiterate, right, what the Deputy County Executive was trying to explain. We are looking at this in such a multi-pronged approach, right? There's no quick fix to what we're experiencing in our community around housing insecurities. So when you layer the fact that we don't have the housing inventory, when you layer it on the fact that we're seeing unprecedented emergency housing shelter numbers in our DHS systems, people kind of always think that it's just our DHS clients. So yes, we totally agree that there needs to be some advocacy at the state, which we've been doing, with the county executive has been supporting DHS with getting advocacy to the state regarding increasing the rental supplement allowance. They're too low. We all can agree on that. The other piece too is that we also know that as we navigated through the pandemic moratorium, this multi-pronged approach didn't happen overnight. We've been forecasting this out for the last 2 years as we've been tracking our emergency housing shelter placement numbers with the belief that they're just DHS placements. I have folks that are in emergency housing right now that are working full-time, making $15, $16 minimum wage, that can't afford the rents that landlords have put out there right now. Our landlords in our community, especially our smaller mom and pop landlords with under 10 or so units, they're not risk averse. They're looking for 650 type of credit scores, 2 times, 3 times of your salary to get housing, right? We have individuals that are sitting in emergency housing shelters that have these Section 8 family choice vouchers that the legislator speaks to. As you also know, we have a DHS program called Project Anchor that we have funded and gotten additional funds from the state. Those families still, right, with the hopes that we're trying to reduce those recidivism into the child welfare system, targeting that as we have the highest number of families that are living through the Rochester City School District, working through the Rochester City School District that are homeless. So we're looking at it from so many layers. But the fact still remains that if we don't look at trying to incentivize programs for landlords, whether they're new or old landlords, if we don't look at ways to mediate some of the issues that are occurring between landlords and tenants, if we don't find a way to do some case management and some aftercare, right? We put out $45 million in ARPA funds in arrears payments, where my deputy commissioner was writing invoices for $25,000 because individuals had not been paying their rent for over a year. As that moratorium was not clear enough, with so many people in our community thought it was a rent holiday. But guess what? There was no moratoriums for our small landlords that had to pay their mortgages, their water bills, their taxes. So now they're coming back online, and they don't want these clients. They don't want our community members that are low income because of how they've been burnt. So you can kind of play devil's advocate on both ends and understand, right? that landlords are struggling, our tenants are struggling, our community is struggling. This is not going to be the quick fix, but we have to do something. And we have to do something and be able to partner with community-based organizations, to be boots to the ground, to handhold tenants, to help them understand. And then when we get them in a position, right, where they're in affordable housing, how do we teach them? How do we teach them to budget their money so they don't end up in a situation again? That's what the case management program is about, right? To handhold them, to give our community a little TLC, understanding that this is probably one of the worst in my whole career, and I've been doing this for over 20-something years, to see the way that our community is struggling right now, with the level of poverty that we're seeing, with the struggles that our own working community is having, with individuals like singles getting 400 plus, right, in rental supplement that includes their light and gas. It's impossible. So I'll just say this again to say that our team has worked extremely hard, and I'm so thankful for the support of the administration for us to try something out of the box that has never been done before. And the county exec that, for my first time in many, many years, has really taken on housing as an initiative, because I've been around a long time, and I have never seen a county executive or an administration tackle housing in such an intentional way. And it's not going to be the end, right? I will be back to welcome any questions later down the line as we start to track the data and see how these programs work. When we have to come back to the table in the spirit of continuous quality improvement to massage it a little bit, to measure the effectiveness, to make those changes. I know it's hard to hear, but that's how these programs work. And it's better than us not doing anything. Thank you.
The chair to the administration. Respectfully, you did not answer my question. It doesn't appear that we're contracting for anything that is defined. We do have to do something, and there's a lot of evidence out there for things that we can do for tenant mediations and landlord incentive programs that do not look like this. I'm going to ask again, why are we incentivizing landlords who paying them $1,000 if they are already renting to extremely low-income tenants, and they're already renting to voucher holders?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as Commissioner Wright said, this is something we need to tackle from all ends of this. There are a number of people that have apartments that are just not willing to rent them, and that's part of what the incentive program is trying to address. And I guess I would just say, the legislator, through you, Mr. Chairman, has made it very clear that she doesn't agree with this program. The day that it was announced, from the moment it was announced, she was trashing the program. She was on social media saying how she knew a better way than the professionals did. I think we get that, we understand that, and we'll be happy to answer the same questions as many times as you see fit, Mr. Chairman, to allow her to ask that. But I don't know what the point of this is. If you'd like to continue to ask the same questions, we can give you the same answers. I think we have a fundamental disagreement in terms of what our approach is and what our outlook is and what your approach is with that. And if you'd like to continue this, we could go on for as long as the committee would like. But I think we just have a fundamental agreement. You think you're right, and we have a plan in place, and we're willing to move forward and go ahead with it if it's the will of this body to support that.
Chair to the administration.
Legislator Barnhart, what I'm going to do right now is kind of pause your comments.
No, I have a number of questions.
I'm going to come back.
I will move on from the landlord incentive program.
Yeah,
I think it's inappropriate for the administration to insult legislators the way that they're doing.
I think what I'm going to do right now is kind of pause you. And any other legislators have anything they'd like to say? Legislator Udelson.
Thank you.
I will come back to you, Legislator Barnhart.
I'm glad that we're to this point, working on for quite a while, and people different things that are part of this package, address housing issues, assist profits in qualifying areas. They're all good things for the community. And I want to push back against any notion that's been out there that this was not a process that included bipartisan participation, work group that included as well as the administration. Say it any other way, I take exception with. I wanted to say something quickly about the aid to and youth programming in the various towns, and I know there's some differing opinion how that should be distributed and the intent population. I support that because although there's lots of different measures you could put as far as economic need and the ARPA funding in the guidelines said that it was to be utilized for programs or services in response to those impacted by the negative health and economic impacts of the pandemic, including the general public. And I think that we all know that those effects were profound everywhere through our community, and especially feel strongly about the senior center. I'm over the years working with them, know that it's not just the neediest socialized. There's so many different things that. So I support this. Everybody's work on it.
Anyone else? Legislator Maxwell Simmons?
I have questions about the funding for the administration of ARPA program. Through you to the administration, do we have a breakdown of the budget?
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the question. The budget for what?
The administration of the ARPA funding. $1 million.
Through the chair, the budget for the project administration of the ARPA is for primarily the addition of 8 additional staff members to monitor and continue to engage with the grantees throughout the duration of the program through the end of 2026. It also covers the additional funding for the EFPR group, and then a small amount for some construction of some offices to house those additional 8 people.
Are any of these funds for legal counsel?
Through the chair, no.
I noticed a $20,000 contract. Are you planning to use this money?
Through the chair, can you clarify your question, please?
Okay, so there's a $20,000 contract for the consultant, compliancy purpose.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that's part of this referral.
We have, I'll pull that, through you to the administration, can we ask, can you provide a breakdown of the budget in writing? Can we have it?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, we can.
Anyone else? Legislator Baines.
Mr. Chairman of the administration, are the ARPA guidelines for towns and cities the same as the ARPA guidelines for counties in terms of how the money can be spent?
Through the chair, yes, the guidelines are the same.
The chair then, so I've been studying up on towns and, you know, they've been providing funds to not-for-profits, et cetera, but some of these towns don't have census tracts in them that are qualifying under the census tract rule that we're applying. Is that a rule that is hard and fast as we interpret it from our legal department for us? Maybe they don't see it that way. For you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, no, I don't. I think our interpretation of the grants for nonprofits in qualified census tracts, the interpretation, the category we are using is quite clear. I can't speak to what other category another municipality may be using.
Thank you. I'd like to explain my vote. Is this an appropriate time, or do you want me to wait?
You can do that, Legislator Baines.
You know, I want to inject some facts into the discussion. The city of Rochester, through the city itself and the city school district, received $396 million in ARPA funds. The county of Monroe received 144. And I'm, you know, trying to figure out how much of it's going where, but I would say that 100 million of the 144 is going to the city of Rochester. And that's fine. But we have in this particular bill $6 million to reimburse municipalities outside the city that are providing services to youth and seniors, and we have $1 million for veterans. And I, for one, think that that approach should have been the right approach. This is supposed to be pandemic related, as the majority leader commented. And I was working with young people during the pandemic. It doesn't matter, you know, the pandemic affected everybody, and the mental health ramifications for youth and for seniors. I happen to be one of them too. And for veterans, you know, we know that congregate settings, which I appreciate the language of the legislation, that we're trying to support congregate settings, because it was the isolation, it was the kind of alienation from social bonds and contacts that was one of the greatest damaging effects of the pandemic. So my complaint is we're not doing more of this, but we're finally doing something in terms of putting some money out throughout the county. You know, 21 out of 29 residents in this county do not live in the city of Rochester. We really work hard to support our city brothers and sisters, but I'm thankful that we finally have something in here for out in the county, and I'm going to be enthusiastically voting yes when this comes up for a vote this evening and before the full legislature. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Legislator Brew?
My vote, if I may, yes. I echo everything that Legislator Baines had just mentioned. But I'd like to actually acknowledge the hard work of Commissioner Wright and what she does. When you hear her speak, again, you can tell it is with a sincere passion that she has for those DES clients that she serves. And if you think about, I know Legislator Baines just mentioned, how it's a wonderful thing that we're able to receive the funds in the counties. That's great. But the one thing I'd like to emphasize here is that everybody in this room should be aware of the chronic housing situation that exists right now in the city of Rochester. I've learned a lot in 8 years. I'm a farm boy, but boy, have I learned a lot, okay? When you look at the inflation that we've had, and people just not able to buy groceries, they're not able to put gas in their vehicles. This just hit everybody. It hits landlords because their costs have gone up, and this has just created the perfect storm that we're seeing right now in the housing areas of the city. So again, I do applaud Ms. Wright for thinking out of the box and coming up with a proposed solution that, hey, we don't know, it may work, it may not work out so well. But it's doing something other than just throwing money at a situation and just hoping that it sticks and makes it a little different. So again, thank you, Delia, for, I think, a wonderful job that you've done and you continue to do. Thank you.
Legislator Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you, Commissioner Wright, I also want to thank you for the very balanced perspective on the housing situation and the acknowledgement that small investors also suffered greatly during that time, and without their support, there simply is no inventory on the market. So I do very much appreciate that balanced perspective. I do have a couple questions, so through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. This is a very general question that comes up from time to time, so I just want to get a clear answer. Can ARPA funds be used to directly offset the tax levy?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, they cannot.
Okay, thank you. And I thought that was the answer. I just needed clarity on that. And one additional question through you, Mr. Chairman. The monthly reports that Legislator Dondorfer asked about, will they include all of the previously allocated ARPA grants, or will that just be limited to the money that we're discussing here this evening?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that will be an ARPA-wide review that they're doing, so it won't just be for these grants and this referral. It will be for the entire ARPA program.
Okay, thank you. And one additional question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration. For the Veterans Pilot Program, what areas have you considered for the east and west side centers, and have you considered mobile or rotating service center that might, say, locate in various east and west side towns on, every second Tuesday or something to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, we're looking at on the west side. One of the locations we're looking at is the Mall and Grace. On the east side, we have a couple locations that we're looking at. I believe it's, we don't have any formal agreements with anyone, obviously, but our real estate director of real property services is looking at locations. I think she's looking at some locations that are in the Penfield-Webster area with them. And Director Stevanovic can answer this, but actually we've talked about this a lot, so I think I can handle the question that you asked about taking the show on the road with this. That's not something we're looking at doing, but also I would say a couple things about this. you know, we're very proud of the work that the Veteran Service Agency has done. You know, through the support of the legislature, we've increased that budget regularly in terms of putting more staff there. We've recouped more dollars there every year, and it's really a fantastic program. Part of what the benefit of these satellite locations will be is that it would make it easier for people to come to locations, and also in discussions that we've had before, if somebody was not able to get to a location, we would be able to send somebody out to meet them. So we're looking at improving services and having locations that would be closer to where people live. And again, if somebody isn't mobile, we would have the ability to make home visits there. And again, we would expect that would be on a relatively limited basis.
Just a quick follow-on question through you, Mr. Chairman. It just seems that taking the show on the road might offer better access to people in outlying communities. You know, for instance, the distance between the Grease Mall and Westfall Road isn't huge. What do you see as the disadvantages of doing that?
Chairman, you know, I think, because this is actually something that had come up when we were looking at the senior component of this too. And Director Newcomb is here, and again, I'm repeating what I've heard in meetings with them, but I feel confident that I can deliver the message, and if I mess it up, I'm sure they aren't going to hesitate to tell me I messed it up and give you the right information. We have on a regular basis, with the senior services, we have put services and people into a lot of community centers in the different towns across the county, and the response to that really hasn't been fantastic. And again, I think a lot of times people won't necessarily know what our schedule is, and you know, it's not like you know, when I was in actually I don't want to bring up a sore subject here, but when I was in the county clerk's office and we had the mobile DMVs, people knew, you know, and there was a high level of demand for that, and people knew that you were at a certain place every Monday, every Tuesday with us. We don't anticipate, you know, the demand's not going to be that high for that, so I think there would be a lot of downtime where people would be at a location where there wouldn't be a regular traffic flow with this. So I think the thinking is, and again, for both the senior and the veteran population, you know, part of the program is there's going to be an advertising component to that. What that is, I don't know if that's you know, social media or traditional media. That's not my area, but you know, we are going to publicize these locations, and again, knowing both directors, we will bend over backwards in terms of meeting people where they are, and if people can't make it to those locations, and again, that will also be part of our messaging. And you know, it's very common for people calling the Veteran Service Agencies to, right, they have to call and make an appointment. So we can offer a location that's closer, and again, that will be part of our publicity with this, that we would be able to meet people, you know, at their homes if they're not mobile.
Thank you very much. I yield.
Any additional questions? Legislator Barnhart.
I only have one other question on housing, and then I'll move on. In its proposal, Ibero estimates that it can bring 400 units online over 2 years, with 100 of those landlords requiring tapping into the $3,500 for damages and unpaid rent. Are we to assume that those 100 tenants would no longer be living in those units if that money is being tapped?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for this program, the tenants can have unpaid rent. There could be damages to the unit. That's the hopes of this program, to be able to assist with that as well, to keep tenants hopefully in their units and to assist the landlords with that process.
Through the chair to the administration, it seems like a question that should be easy to answer. It doesn't common sense would indicate that if I'm a landlord and you damage my apartment, you're not there anymore. I'll move on. Through the chair to the
That's
administration.
not true, ma'am.
Okay. Through the chair to the administration, the $6 million nonprofit grant program, what is the formula?
Through the chair, the not-for-profit qualified census tracts would be based on the number of applications received that meet the eligibility requirement of a not-for-profit corporation that operates within a qualified census tract and has done so pre-pandemic, so at least 2019 and moving forward. The $6 million will then be distributed based on the number of applications that are received using a percentage that will be calculated on the total average salaries from the 990 submitted, and I'm, apologies, so all of the eligible qualified not-for-profits that operate within a census tract, the county will aggregate an average of the salaries paid out in the 990s as a proxy for their typical operating expenses, and then divide the available $6 million based on a percentage to cover the operating expenses in their 990s.
Moving on to the $6 million Senior Youth Center Fund, through the chair to the administration, is the city eligible for this fund?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, these are for suburban locations.
Through the chair to the administration, why is that? Why is the city excluded?
Why is that? I think part of my answer would reflect, well, let me start out by saying, when we sat down with the leadership here, and we embarked on this conversation about how we were going to reach this process, this is something we've been working on for a couple months, and it's something we've heard from legislators. A need for seniors in youth programming, and particularly the suburban legislators. And I would point out, I think what Legislator Baines has said earlier was probably correct or close enough for our discussion. This community has received, between ourselves, the city of Rochester, and the Rochester City School District, probably about $500 million in ARPA funding as a result of this. I think Legislator Baines's estimate is actually pretty accurate, that I would say probably at least $100 million of those dollars have been spent in the city, which, again, obviously we're totally on board of, we're totally supportive of. But as we sat down and talked, and we looked at eligible uses, senior and youth were a specific category that were allowed under ARPA to spend money for, because they were a group that was disproportionately impacted by COVID. And as we were putting this proposal together and this package together, we came to the discussion with all of the caucuses, and I know there was some discussion that I'd seen on social media that I feel it is imperative that gets corrected, that this was something that the Republican caucus got, right? That somehow, which, speaking for the administration, it's inaccurate. This was something that there was agreement on, that we wanted to address the issue of congregate settings between seniors and youths. The municipalities, the towns and villages outside of the city and the city school district received very small ARPA grants for this. And we decided to approach this from a suburban perspective because, as Legislator Baines has said, we heard from a lot of suburban legislators that were looking for something that would help address needs in their community. And I think it's important to recognize that as we work on things like this, we have to respect what legislators feel are in the best interest of their communities. And again, this package and these dollars are for all of Monroe County. And we thought, again, after the discussions and the back and forth, that to take $6 million out of $144 million and to dedicate them to senior programming and youth programming in the suburbs was reasonable. It was something that has broad bipartisan support. And again, as Legislator Bain said, the pandemic affected these groups across the board. And the rationale with this was, and then I've seen that there's been discussion, well, geez, this should really be allocated on need. If you look at it, if, you know, the town I'm most familiar with where I used to work, well, the town of Greece has probably one of the, I'm quite confident I would say that has the largest raw number of senior citizens of any other town in Monroe County by its size. So to have that proportional representation in the awarding of the funding is something that made sense to people as part of the negotiations. Again, people that we've talked to thought that it made sense in terms of discussions that we've had with individual legislators. And at the end of the day, this was the path that the administration came to in working in partnership with the leadership of both caucuses. And we're quite confident that there will be extremely broad support for this method of distribution among all legislators.
So through the chair to the administration, this city legislator wasn't asked. How was the $6 million figure chosen?
You know, through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could address that for a minute, the whole issue of this. You know, I think this referral is an example, and I think this gets lost in all of the noise. And I think if you look at the way this process worked, speaking for the administration, we're proud of the work that we've done. If you look at the dysfunction that goes on in government, a lot of government, you've had this body, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a lot of legislators vote for this, and there will be broad support. We actually came together and we worked and we addressed vast community needs, and we had a lot of different people who represent a lot of different districts come together and come up with a package that everybody supports. And obviously, when you do something like this, you can't have 29 people at a table. And what happened was we met with leadership. Leadership went back and talked to their membership. And, you know, I guess I would just like to say, Mr. Chairman, for someone to say, well, geez, I wasn't asked, I don't think that that's really an indictment of the administration and the 27 other members of the legislature who did participate. I think there should be some reflection on that among the people that didn't participate, who didn't talk to their leadership, who chose not to participate in the process, and to somehow view that as an indictment of the work of the people on that side of the aisle, the people on that side of the aisle, and the people in the administration, frankly, I think is terribly misguided. And I just feel as though that needs to be said. And again, on behalf of all of the people who have worked, and again, the $6 million number is something that came up in the course of negotiations and and was a part of the discussions that we had in those meetings that have gone on over a couple of months.
Legislator Barnard, I'm going to kind of invoke my.
Okay, I'm almost done, and I, you know, all right. That's fine. I will just explain my vote. Now, thank you for taking time to answer these questions, although I don't really think you answered most of my questions. This is how government should be done, not behind closed doors. The practice of using caucus meetings to evade open meetings law and conduct government business through so-called briefings while excluding certain legislators hurts the public and hurts our ability to do due diligence and deliberate as a body. I have to vote against this proposal. We were given a huge, complicated proposal only last week, and contrary to what we just heard, we were not given many details about this at all, despite attending caucus meetings and communicating often about ARPA. The kindest thing that can be said about this package is that it was negotiated in a back room, and it's well-intentioned, but it's riddled with problems. There are good things that I strongly support, but there's millions of dollars in spending that I find wasteful and inequitable. City residents pay taxes too. City residents were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. That is why you see more aid directed to the city. I think what's happened over the last weekend demonstrates why we have aid directed in this way. Means testing should not just be for city funds, it should be for the suburban funds too, because the suburbs face hardship as well. The housing proposals are particularly problematic as they give millions of dollars to nonprofit staff and pennies for people. The administration complains about a lack of housing units, yet diverted $3 million for rental repairs elsewhere. And instead of answering questions, the administration continues to resort to personal attacks in this chamber. It's highly inappropriate conduct. I would ask the chair to please write a letter to the deputy county executive admonishing him about his conduct. This legislation is in no shape for a yes vote. I will be voting no at this time and introducing amendments at the full legislature meeting. Thank you.
So this is really legislative excrescence.
I represent
Through the chair.
Through the chair, I represent District 22, which is one of the poorest districts in all of Monroe County. Disturbing to hear reference of what the city of Rochester has done with their ARPA funding and what the Rochester City School District has done with their funding. I wasn't elected at either one. I was elected to serve as their representative here in the county, and I am going to fight for them. A question was raised about a $6 million, and I didn't hear the answer, so I will ask the question. How was the $6 million drafted?
I believe I don't believe I know I answered that. That was a number that was arrived at in the discussions among leadership in the administration.
Through you to the administration, were calls made to each town and municipality as to what their requirements or their needs were?
No, there were not calls made to every town about this, no.
Due to the administration, how are the dollars then allocated if we don't know what the requirements were?
Mr. Chairman.
How was the figure $6 million chosen? Was it chosen to have parity with the nonprofit fund? No. Sir, I wasn't invited to any of the briefings. I was excluded, and this is the problem. Inner city representatives are never at the table. This is the issue that I have.
Legislative excrescence, ask your question, and we'll move on. You have another question? Because I do have
I'm
some.
waiting for the answer.
I do have something to say. So,
Hasn't been answered.
Call the question.
I'm going to reject the point of order for now. To call the question.
He had a point of
Oh,
order.
okay.
Asked and answered, and you had to
Yes, I do.
Okay, so the question's been asked and answered. It's open.
Oh, Mr. Non-debatable and
Got to vote on the call to question. There's a vote on the call to question.
Oh, yeah. Let's vote on call to question then.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes no. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes no. Ms. Smith. Smith votes yes. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes no. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Chairman Mafucci.
No.
Chairman Mafucci votes no. President Roman. President Roman votes no. The call to question fails 5-7.
Okay, I do have something that I would like to say. I've been waiting to actually say this for a while, and it follows up something that the Deputy County Executive said. Back when I was first elected, I was criticized occasionally because I would mention I was a superintendent of schools. And being a superintendent of schools, you kind of get used to being criticized, so not a big deal. But what you learn is that budgets are an executive function. It's the responsibility of the executive in a government to create a budget. The legislature then can approve, reject, or amend. And ARPA, the money that was given to this county, was a budget. And it's the responsibility of the executive to create that budget. And obviously there were bumps in the roads. And I would just like to say this. I commend the leadership of both caucuses and the county executive and the administration for sitting down and crafting an agreement that makes sense and that people can live with. I can only imagine taking $144 million, that was the original allocation, and handing it to 29 legislators. You can only imagine the bedlam. So once again, I strongly support this and would like now to call for a vote. Legislator Baines.
Chairman of the administration, but we've also discussed that it has been the practice and allowable for school districts, municipalities to use the ARPA money for, quote, lost revenue to the pandemic. And it's my understanding that that's what many did, and that we, as a county, to our credit, did not. And I want to correct the record that we, as I understand it, that we are seeking to, in good faith, allocate every dollar of ARPA funds. Through you to the administration. I want to check my understanding, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, that's correct.
And as a comment, you know, money is fungible. So yes, you can't use it to lower the levy, but you're seeing a lot of municipalities, school districts flush with cash because they covered their lost revenue with ARPA funds. And we are making an effort to get it out to the people. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Roll call vote.
Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes no. Mr. Udelson? Mr. Udelson votes yes. Chairman Mafucci?
Yes.
Chairman Mafucci votes yes. President Roman? President Roman votes yes. 10-2, referral passes.
Thank you. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no other matters, the July 30th, 2024 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be held on Tuesday, August 26th.